I'm Taylor. I am the operations manager at Kaboom for our Play Products team. So I've been at Kaboom for about 4.5 years, working directly with Imagination Playground and our other large-scale product, Rigamajig, which I'll talk about in a second. So here to just kind of talk about what we do and what our philosophies are related to play facilitation and child-directed open-ended play. Throughout this, we'll talk a little bit about Kaboom and what we do overall, the two products that we work with, Imagination Playground and Rigamajig, and what we believe the role of the play facilitator should include, getting into a little bit more of programming and play prompt ideas for Imagination Playground, quick reminder of safety and care, because that's always important, especially working with kids, and then some Q&A, and there's a bunch of resources at the end that you can check out afterwards. Kaboom is a DC-based nonprofit, and we've been around since 1996, and our mission is really to ensure all kids get play opportunities wherever that may be, specifically for low-income communities and kids that don't necessarily have a lot of opportunities, but in general, just pushing this message that play is super, super important for all kids, for their development, for their growth, for their health, and for the health of all people, really. So since our founding, we have built or improved over 17,000 play spaces, served nearly 10 million kids, and engaged over 1 million volunteers. If you have heard of us before, most likely it's because of our work with our playground build projects, which we do about 150 a year now. This has kind of varied year over year, but we have a team solely dedicated to going out in the field, working with community organizations and either our corporate funders or foundation funders to actually go through a whole planning, design, and building a playground process where they come together as volunteers in one day at the end to build a playground in 6 hours or less. So that's probably what we're most known for. What we've been doing the longest is sort of our flagship program. And then we have expanded to a bunch of other things, which is really cool, because while doing 150 playgrounds a year is amazing, that's definitely not reaching all the kids that we would like to reach, and we definitely need more support and more options, more mobile and pop-up types of options. So we do Play Everywhere, which is a program focused on making spaces that aren't playful more playful. So sidewalks, street crossings, laundromats, grocery stores, wherever there are kids, where kids may not want to be, but maybe have to be because of their parents, or they're running errands, or in between school hours or whatnot. So that's a program focused solely on designing and creating spaces that are playful, playing anywhere. The Creative Play Products team, which is my team, so I'm biased and feel like it's the best team. We work with Imagination Playground and Rigamajig, and we get to distribute those through grant programs. So corporate funders and foundation funders work with us to distribute those to low-income community organizations. And then we also sell them to different groups, such as where I met Rebecca last week at the ACM conference. We're able to work in a lot of different ways and help support people who write their own grants or want to find their own donors to pay for these great large-scale products. We do disaster rebuilding. So specifically, we've done a lot of Hurricane Katrina and other big natural disaster rebuilding of playgrounds, and really just disseminating play products quickly in places where they need to, get play back up and running. Maybe the schools are shut down, or they're just focused on building their houses and the kids are kind of left with nothing to do. And then our city partnerships team really is diving into working with city municipalities and housing authorities and other types of groups, just to really design for play and get play into the places where it isn't, but where it should be. So overall, like I said, just really, we believe that all of our communities and our world and our adults, we all benefit from our kids being healthy and playful. Rigamajig is another product that we distribute, and both of them are large scale loose parts products. This one is just wood and plastic versus the blue foam. And it's used in a lot of classrooms, in a lot of maker spaces, in a lot of educational settings. While it is a free play tool, it can definitely be a little bit more advanced when it comes to learning a lot of those educational ideas and STEM and STEAM ideas. So that's what we were exhibiting last week, but we do work with both products, and everything I'm talking about related to play facilitation can be applied to both products. And it is across our website on both products. We actually, a lot of people don't really realize this, but this product has been around for a little over a decade, and we were part of the initial development of it. It was created by the architect David Rockwell, but we were part of the development of the foam and the process and the initial distribution partner. So we were always sort of the more philanthropic partner with our grant programs, while they were the more retail consumer facing partner. Obviously, as you guys know, a lot of you have played with it. It's just such a fun, large scale, colorful, inviting product. It's so accessible for kids of all ages and abilities. It's great for intergenerational play. It's creative. It's just like watching kids engage with it is like one of the most fun things for me, both of the products. It's one of my favorite things just to observe and watch the kids and what they come up with and their ideas and just sort of get inspired by them. But as you all know, it has a lot of the loose parts, holes and shapes that fit together, but also things you can stack and make forts out of and houses. We probably come up with boring things, but kids come up with really creative things. We'll get into the role of the play facilitator. And a lot of this I took from the Play Associates training, which is something we used to offer but don't really have the capacity to anymore. So I kind of just updated it a little and took a lot of it from that, but it stayed the same the whole time we've worked with this product, and our philosophy of really letting the kids direct their own play and being there as an observer and an encourager, prompting with different questions and ideas, but not being too prescriptive and really letting them sort of figure out a lot on their own. Initially, what we would say is like one of the first and foremost roles of the play facilitator is getting the materials ready. A couple ways that we do that on a regular basis would be either, depending on the age of the kids and how many there are and how much space there is, we would potentially pull all the blocks out of their carts and maybe stack them in like piles and then have the kids sort of start with a blank slate. If they're not familiar at all, we might have sort of a starting structure that we would have them, maybe we would start maybe as some kind of a foundation and have them build off of it just until they get super familiar with it, and they can of course take it apart and start over. So there's a couple ways, but obviously that is a good starting point, is, staging the materials, whether that's just the blocks or if it's blocks with other things, which we'll get into. So that's sort of starting off your play sessions. Obviously observing and listening to them, noticing how they're interacting. We find that this product actually allows a lot of kids to build like confidence and kind of come up with, maybe they're a little more shy normally and they've never left the front of a computer screen, or they're just not comfortable with other kids. But we find that this product is just so inviting and accessible that kids who are normally playing by themselves or not engaging with other kids will start engaging with other kids. And they may always be followers in other games, but maybe in this game they'll be a leader, they'll be an organizer. So it's something that we just take note of a lot so we can encourage the behavior with them. Sometimes we might demonstrate some of the possibilities for play and the uses of the materials and get involved with them, but again, trying to be as sort of hands-off as possible so they know you're there for support, but they're not thinking like this adult's going to tell me what to do. They have the freedom to figure that out themselves. As I mentioned, it's such a great intergenerational product. So really encouraging the relationships with the kids and the parents or the grandparents or the supervisors or guardians, whoever it is, and even, different ages of kids together. I love that. Different, ages of siblings who maybe at home they never play together, but when they're with Imagination Playground, they do, and they get along and they create and work together in a positive way, promoting, caring and fair behavior. And really, like I said, encouraging the teamwork, encouraging kids to work together. You'll find a lot that pieces will run out, or kids will find that pieces will run out, and they'll have to start borrowing and trading and asking to share versus, making their own structure by themselves in a corner and, not having all the pieces they need to complete it. Another thing that we really like to do is getting a lot of the kids involved, even if maybe they don't want to play, maybe they want to document. So some other things we've offered to kids is, why don't you be the person who takes pictures of this, work in progress, and then write a caption for each photo? Or why don't you play journalist and go interview these kids who are building and tell us what they're doing? We do a lot with that kind of thing too. So maybe they don't want to build, maybe that's just not their thing, but a way to get them involved with any other way to get them involved in the play and the creativity. We're always trying to support and encourage that as much as possible. One of our favorite things to do, which I know can be a challenge if it's more of an open-ended play session versus a program or a school or a classroom or something, but really allowing a space and time for reflection, especially if it is going to be like a challenge-based thing. If you're building for 30 or 45 minutes, then allowing some time at the end to get the kids together in their groups or however they worked and say, okay, show us what it is, describe it to us, tell us how it works, tell us what didn't work, what was challenging, what did you like about it? And just really encourage them to communicate those things to each other and to the adults around them. They'll really feel a lot of ownership over it if you're able to encourage that kind of thing. Yeah, and then as a play facilitator, obviously just ensuring safe and hygienic environment and really showing them kids that you care, you're listening to them, you're supporting them, you're not overburdening them and telling them what to do, but you're there if they need you, which is really a big thing that Kaboom cares about, is just making sure kids know they have caring adults in their lives. And if they're younger, maybe a higher ratio. Something that we like to do, or that a lot of organizations like to do, is establishing rules and common language. So again, sometimes may not be as feasible if it's a group that's just coming in and out, or it's more of a free open play museum versus a program or a specific classroom. We encourage establishing rules with the kids, make a colorful sign like this one or something that's, kind of, it tells them, this is theirs and they should be treating it with as much respect as the adults will treat it, and it'll therefore last hopefully much longer. And then also just sort of that common language piece to be able to say, can we share this? Or, I really like what you're building, can I help? And even like naming different pieces of the Imagination Playground is fun. They actually have kind of fun names, so you could definitely use those, but sometimes we'll, hold up different pieces and be like, okay, what should we all call this noodle? Maybe it's not a noodle, maybe it's spaghetti, or maybe it's something else. Or the circles are actually called little cheeses. You could use that, or they can come up with their own ideas. But really just kind of, again, having that common language. So if a kid's building and they're like, oh, I really need like 5 noodles, they can go over to another kid and be like, hey, like, can I borrow 5 of your noodles, or can we connect our things together so that I can close the door on my fort or something like that. So it's definitely like a good way to get kind of all the kids on the same page if you're starting from a fresh group like that. So getting into some programming ideas, and these are all ideas that we've just taken from people who use the product, honestly. So they're real ideas that organizations that we have granted this product to have done. So the Imagination Playground allows for a lot of problem solving, especially because it's just loose parts. So they're setting everything up themselves, and then they're seeing problems in what they're building, and then they're inventing solutions right then and there. So if a group is like, I want to build a swimming pool, so they start building a swimming pool, and then they start building a diving board, and they realize the diving board isn't, maybe they're using one of the 4-foot long blocks, and maybe it needs a weight to hold it in the back so that it doesn't fall into the pool. So they're kind of coming up with an entire, situation, problem, and solution all in one play session. Another thing we've seen people do, which I think is cool, is having different ages or different groups make different parts of the same project. So if they're building a house or a boat, it's this group's job to build the foundation, it's this group's job to build the walls, this group's job to build the roof, blah, blah, blah. And they kind of realize, if they don't all work together, and the structure is built on top of each other, right? So if the foundation's not sturdy, then nothing else is sturdy. And it really shows them they can all collaborate and build off of the same thing. The Imagination Playground allows for a lot of logic and mathematical skills. There's tons of opportunities for counting, classifying, organizing, like I said. A lot of the times, even like cleaning up at the end of a play session can be an opportunity for that. It's, hey, let's stack all the pieces back into their like piles before we put them in the carts or put them away in storage. So really kind of some of those basic skills for younger kids, especially really hands-on. They get to lift up all those pieces and place them in like piles. We have a group in New Orleans called Play Build NOLA that does a lot of pop-up play with both Rigamajig and Imagination Playground, where they start with the whole design process. So they take their groups, their kids out into the community, into the neighborhood, and they talk about the shotgun house style that's really popular in New Orleans. Then they go back to their space, draw their own designs, build them in small forms with like smaller products, and then they all work together to build a big Imagination Playground version. So they kind of start with a small concept and bring it to life in large scale, which allows a lot of communication and collaboration with the kids. This is one of my favorite things. I love seeing people do this. So incorporating other materials, we definitely recommend it. The 2 things that are the most common or kind of have been around since the beginning are fabric and sand and water. So fabric just any kind of fabric. You can use different sheets. You can add things like more colors or designs or whatever it might be. It might be just to decorate something, or it could be, to cover, it could be a roof, it could be a window, it could be the sail of a pirate ship, whatever the kids want it to be. But including fabric in the play is super fun. Sand and water also really fun outside, obviously, because it's closed cell foam, so nothing will be absorbed, and it's pretty easy to clean. Obviously, you need to like sort of dry the blocks out at the end. It is totally doable, and kids do that, with all the channels. That's super fun. You can prompt them to say, okay, we've got this big stack of blocks. How do we get water from this side of the yard to that side of the yard? And just kind of see what they come up with. The couple photos I included are some ideas I've seen online. So on the left side is they made an entire enclosure and sort of maze space for robotics. So they incorporated some technology into it, which I thought was really cool, and used it to create space to program different robots. And I've seen lots of groups do that. So that's a really interesting option. The group on the right, those girls created a mini golf course using Imagination Playground. So again, it doesn't have to just be the product itself. It can definitely be incorporated with other things, low tech, no tech, high tech, whatever. It's really kind of open-ended for that. And I think that's one of the more fun parts. Another one that I've seen a lot of people do, especially with younger kids, is letter recognition and language development. So actually using the blocks to spell out different words, whether that's their name, simple words, vocabulary words, whatever, and try to figure out, which pieces will really make that shape. Older kids, maybe it's not making shapes and spelling, but it's more like, oh, okay, what are you reading in class, or what are you reading at home, or watching on TV, or playing in your video game? Let's build it. Let's connect it to something that you do that you're just looking at versus actually hands-on with. And then having kids write about their creations, kind of like the reflection thing, writing about their creations, or writing a story that incorporates it, maybe with pictures, or maybe just writing. Other fun ideas about using the products for motivating playful cooperative learning. We'll have kids encouraged to build replicas of things in the real world. So maybe cars, or again, houses, forts, castles. But instead of saying like, let's build a car today, we would say, build a vehicle to take you to the moon or the center of the earth, wherever they want to go, and see what they create. Because they might make a car, they might make a house, or something that seems pretty standard, but they could make something totally creative and something you never would have thought of also. So we try to keep it as open-ended as possible. But you can also prompt them to make unique furniture, or I've seen kids do obstacle courses with Imagination Playground, which is a fun, very high energy activity they could do with it. These are just the general play prompts that we recommend. They're all open-ended. They're not super lesson plan program focused, but it's what we use for both of the products to get people, initially into using the products, and then they can kind of come up with their own after that. But some of my favorite ones, like I said, building a vehicle to get you to the center of the earth, making a structure that incorporates a box or a balloon. So again, adding other elements into it, giving kids a certain amount of pieces and saying, okay, how many, what can you make with this? Or what's the tallest thing you can make with this? Just using this X amount of pieces. Or having kids join structures. If you've got two different groups, it's like, okay, here's your house and my house over here. How do we connect those? I love seeing like domino, Rube Goldberg type of contraptions. Those are always super fun and cool to watch videos of. And then one we've done in some of our play days that Kaboom has gotten to put on is doing a build a tunnel. So we would have the kids build a long tunnel with the blocks and then get the whole group to run through and time them, and they all get really excited about that and then knock it down. Yeah, there's so many open-ended ways, and like I said, as a play facilitator, we just encourage being as supportive and open-ended as possible, and not being prescriptive about how what they're going to make, but more how are you going to make this, how does it work, what's not working. If it fails, that's okay. Like, what can we do differently next time? That kind of thing. And then the last couple safety and care reminders: not to play on the carts themselves. Definitely not safe. We say no standing and jumping off the stacked blocks. I know this happens, but we try to discourage it just for safety purposes. If you are going to incorporate other elements, ropes, fabrics, just to be careful that those don't get tied around kids or anything. And then with sand, just making sure sand is taken care of and not thrown all over the place and at other kids. And then it's really easy to clean and store. It shouldn't really be left outside all the time just because inclement weather will wear it down. But it can be washed with like soap and water basically. Don't use any kind of like bleach or anything because it definitely will, it'll fade the color. But other than that, like I said, it won't absorb anything. It's closed cell foam. They're very easy to clean for germs and anything that might get spilled on them.